the legend starts. Because the moment Axtell steps back into the house, all the lights in the house out. The words on the mirror say betrayer. Welcome to the Tales from the Attic. Well, Tales from the Attic is about stories that could be very tall tales or stories that actually are truthful and have some sort of history to them. These are stories that are passed down by legend, and some of them have actually been historically proven. And some of them are just, tall tales. We let you decide which ones are which. Today, the story we're going to tell you is about a place called Melrose Hall. It used to be located on what is now Bedford Avenue between Winthrop Street and Clarkson Avenue. That area has changed a lot since when this story took place. Because back when this story took place, that was all farmland. And it was all 100% out in the woods. It was considered countryside. This house was originally built in 1747 by an Englishman called John Lane. And Lane had quite the colorful history himself. See, he was kicked out of England for being too much of a party guy. It's like too crazy, doing too many crazy things. And so the guy gets kicked out of England and he lands himself up here in America. He builds this house, which is a sprawling house, right? It has all these attachments that pop up around it for no apparent reason. And it's the meaning of opulence. I mean, this place had a fireplace in it that was so large that you could roast an ox in the fireplace. Now, we're talking about a full-on ox that could be roasted in this fireplace. That's how huge that was. So he spared no expenses and he went to town with the house. Now, not only did he build it that way, he also put in secret rooms and secret passageways and what would come to become very notoriously a dungeon in the basement. Yep, a full-on dungeon in the basement. Now, originally it wasn't designed as a dungeon in the basement, but it became that, and the stories about this place just get worse from this point on. In time, John Lane died, and before he died, he sold the house to the next owner. And the next owner was just as crazy as this guy, because the next guy was also another party boy. And he was William Axtell. Now, William Axtell plays a part in the Revolutionary War. And in proper British society, this guy was like, he was a lord's son. And he was therefore respected because he should be. But he was always like, one of those crazy types. Until he actually settled down, got married, and he married well. And he started doing well for himself. Then as he started doing well for himself, he bought this house. Now, this wasn't his mainstay house. This was just his summer house or his house in the country, for his family and for them to go out and have a great time. And it would soon become quite a focus in history, American history. Because during the Revolutionary War, Axtell became a colonel for the troops that were fighting for Britain. And he was fighting against Americans for Britain. Now, it's absolutely crazy what happened during the war. It's even crazier what Axtell ended up doing. Axtell raised up his own little regiment, and the regiment were called the Nassau Blues. Now, they were called the Nassau Blues for a really good reason. It was because they were notorious for how awful and inhumane they were with the soldiers that they captured, American soldiers that they captured. And this is where the house comes into play. This house was used as a prison. Now, not the whole house, only the dungeons in the basement were used as a prison. And here's what's crazy. The soldiers who were put in this dungeon below the house were kept in the worst possible situations. They were tortured, they were not fed, and they were chained to the walls. They were in absolutely awful, horrendous situations. But to make the punishment even more cruel, what Axtell would do is he would have parties in a massive ballroom that was right above the dungeon. And up there, there would be music and dancing and food and the sound of people having fun and the sound of laughter, the smell of such good food coming from upstairs. And these poor soldiers who were in the basement, who were not fed, who were in pain, who were being tortured, had to listen to the sound of joy and laughter and smell the food and not have any access to it. How inhumane is that torture? And that happened. That happened in that house. Now, that was the first part of this story. This house had another part. It played another part in another dark chapter of history, which is slavery. Because this house also had slaves. Axtell had a whole bunch of slaves who worked on the land and the farmyards that was surrounding the house. Now, it's said that the slaves too didn't fare so well if they ran afoul of Axtell, because they too would end up in the dungeons and eventually just disappear. Nobody knows what's happening to them. Now, that was all that was going on in the house. And this brings us to the most colorful and interesting part of the story. It is what happened to Axtell, and it is a legend. Now, bear in mind, there are multiple versions to this last bit, okay? So, depends on what version you read. You can go out there and read the other versions. It's quite interesting. But this is the version that I am choosing to tell, because I think this is the more juicy version. Story goes that Axtell and his Nassau Blues are out there. They're on a mission out there doing their thing when the American troops come up on them. And they almost get him. They almost get Axtell. But Axtell manages to run away. And as he's running away, he's being chased by the American troops. And, he's running for his life. He's taking cover. He's trying to get away. And all of a sudden, he gets help. He gets help from an Iroquois princess. She helps him escape, and she takes him back to the safety of his estate. Now, legend has it that this princess is beautiful. And Axtell, being Axtell, obviously, he's completely smitten with her beauty. And he then promptly falls in love with her. The only problem in this story, Axtell is already married. Yep, there's a Mrs. Axtell already there when Axtell falls in love with her. So, what does he do? Yes, you can imagine this is gonna get weird, because Axtell brings his lover into his home. Now, remember, this home has secret passageways, and it has secret rooms, and it has all this secretive stuff going on inside that Axtell knows about, but his wife does not. So, he brings this princess into his house, and he hides her away in one of those secret rooms. And then he entrusts the care and keep of this princess to one of his slaves, an elderly female slave whom he entrusts with the secret that he has going on. And he tells her, she needs to look after the princess's food and the princess's needs and all of that. And this situation goes okay for a while. Everything is hunky-dory when the missus is off in bed or the missus is in the other house. Axel is in this house enjoying himself with the princess. And all's good until he is sent on a mission. And the mission that he gets sent on lasts for anywhere between 6 months to a year. Now, legend also states that before he left, he gave the princess the option to leave and go back to her people or go away until he returns. And he said that when he comes back, he will bring her back. But she doesn't want to go. She wants to be there for him when he returns. Now, Axel, willingly or unwillingly, we will never know, tells the slave that she has to look after this lady and, make sure that she's taken care of, because Axel is very aware that if anything happens, nobody knows she's there. So this is going to become a problem. And as you can imagine, it does become a problem. Because Axel goes off for 1 year. And once he's gone, about, say, 2-3 months after he left, the slave falls critically ill. And almost overnight, she dies. On her deathbed, she has these ramblings about a Native American princess up in the house whom the other slaves need to go and look after. Now, the other slaves who are around her think to themselves that this is ramblings of somebody on their deathbed, and it's that they don't take it seriously. So she dies, and she then subsequently gets buried, and the house just goes on the way the house is going on. Now, during this time, Axel's wife comes to live in this house. So she's there now permanently in this house. And also, the princess, she's in the house too. And she's dying of starvation. Now, legend has it that the princess died quietly, suffering in silence, because she didn't want to give away the fact that she was there. She wanted to be faithful to her love. And so she died in silence in that locked room that nobody knew about. Fast forward 6 months later, Axel comes back home. And the day that he gets home, his wife has organized this big party and there's so many people there. And everyone's here to welcome this homecoming hero. Axel comes home and by all accounts, Axel was uncomfortable. And he looked like he had something on his mind. He couldn't settle down. He kept pacing around and he looks like he's really uncomfortable. And his wife couldn't understand. And they all put it down to the fact that the war had been so bad that it left a mark on him. Later on during the night, as the party progressed, and people got a little bit more drunk, people got a little bit more relaxed, Axel managed to find his way out of the party, around the house, and to the quarters where the slaves lived. When he went there, no doubt all the slaves were shocked to see him because, there's a party in your honor in your house. What are you doing here? He just asked for that particular slave. And they proceed to tell him that the slave has died. And they show him her grave. Instantly, all the color in his face drains out because he realizes what has happened. he realizes that she has died. His princess has died. And so Axel stumbles back into the house. The party's still going on. He comes stumbling back in. And when he comes back in the house, everybody there can see that there is something wrong with this man. He's not the same as when he walked out. And this is where the legend starts. Because the moment Axel steps back into the house, all the lights in the house out. Everything goes quiet. And then there's this eerie sort of a blue, greenish sort of eerie light that comes over everything and everyone in the house. And at this point, everyone is freaking out. Everyone is like, oh my God, what's going on? The light is then followed by a dull moan. And then right there in the ballroom, one of the panels pops open and out steps this ghostly figure of the princess. And she's not as beautiful as she was. On the other hand, she looks gaunt and she looks like, rotting flesh, and she looks really, really bad. And as she steps out, the first thing she does, she looks straight at Axel's wife. And she looks at her and she gives her this smile. It is a deathly smile. And she smiles at her and then turns her attention to Axel. And she's looking at Axel. And as she's looking at him, she's focusing on him and she starts moving. Between where the ghost is and where Axel is a large mirror mounted on the wall. She goes up to the mirror and words appear on the mirror, and the words on the mirror say, betrayer. She then turns around, once again faces Axel's wife, smiles that deathly smile, and gone. The lights in the house continue to be off and there is continued to be darkness. And in the darkness, everybody hears the sound of a body falling. This body hits the ground and everybody knows that somebody fell over. So, who was it that fell over? Was it Axel? Was it the wife? Was it a guest? Nobody has any idea of what's going on. Then, what happens? The lights come back on, or rather they start relighting the lamps and the candles around, only to find Axel on the ground and a dagger in his heart. His own dagger in a self-inflicted wound that he inflicted on himself because he didn't want to live without his princess. Axel was subsequently rushed to into the house, and he was given first aid, and they tried really hard to save his life, and he would live for a few hours after this incident. And in the hours that he was alive, he had very clearly specified that he wants the house sold and he wants his wife and the family sent back to England. And obviously they didn't have a problem with that. So Axel dies and his family goes back to England, and the house takes on this ghostly air. Now, the house is haunted not only by the princess, but also by the countless soldiers who were killed in that basement. And remember, these soldiers didn't just die there. They suffered. And every moment of their life was absolute agony until they died. So the souls that are said to remain are supposed to be absolutely tortured souls. Now, that's the legend. That's the story. Is it exactly as the story says? Or is it a tall, tall tale? That is for you to decide. If you want to find out more, you can go check out the story about Melrose Hall. And if you've enjoyed this video and if you've enjoyed that story, please smash that like button. Absolutely subscribe. And you know what? Leave us a note. Tell us a story that you're interested to hear. And we'd be more than happy to do our research on it and put the story up here. From Tales from the Attic, I'm Michael. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.